It comes to the point on every drift car when your steering angle becomes your limiting factor. For example, on my 350Z, we do not have much angle whatsoever, as well as the Ackerman angle on this car is very bad as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't drift this setup. I recommend you drift this setup a handful of times before thinking about installing something like an angle kit. Now, it's always best to learn how to drift without any angle kit, just so then you get a feel for the car, you start to learn how to drift, and you won't rely on your angle kit. Now, I picked up all these parts from GKTECH, and since I've already been drifting with the stock angle, I know how the car handles, I know how it feels, and it's just time for an upgrade. So today I ended up getting the GKTECH offset rack spacers, the extended inner tie rods, the angle adapters. This is like their bolt-on angle kit for the 350Z instead of the full knuckle assembly, as well as their complete lower control arm setup. So first thing is we get the car jacked up in the air, safely get jack stands under it, and pull your wheels off. I laid everything out on the larger GKTECH box from the lower control arms. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is remove this entire brace section on our car. I already loosened up the bolts over there. So it consists of a 14 millimeter here and there, a 14 millimeter right here, and then a 14 millimeter here and here. Same with the other side, there, and two over there. And then you have a larger nut that goes onto your one lower control arm. That is an 18 millimeter. All right, so we got the arm out. This side popped off super easily. Right as I got the nut out, it actually shot up in the air right out of there. There is a little cone on there that you need to keep. That's just the nut. There's just grease holding it on. There's a little cone. I'm pretty positive you have to keep that. I will let you know a little bit later in the video, but I'm almost positive you need that. And then this piece over here is being a pain. I was able to yank that off, but now I'm dealing with the actual metal piece in there, trying to remove that. My only solution I could really think of was to weld a nut onto that metal bracket. This is working fantastic. I welded the nut on there. I can just turn that whole bushing right off with the nut. Now that we got that removed, we can go ahead and zip off our coilover as well as our Swaybar end link, and then we can go ahead and remove our actual arm. These bolts, this was a 17 millimeter, this was also a 17 millimeter, and this was a 19 millimeter on both sides, and then this one right here is a 21 millimeter. Now you can go ahead and remove your nut for your tie rod, which is a 19 millimeter, as we are replacing this whole assembly in here. Now, I was correct. You will be taking your little cone-shaped piece off of your one arm. We're going to be dropping this into our knuckle right here. And we're just going to remove these little clips from our boot. So we can slide this back and get a wrench on each side of this and remove our inner tie rod. I'm removing it all in one piece. All right, make sure that you are using an adjustable or a wrench on the inside to make sure that you don't damage your steering rack at all, and then one on the outside. Once you break it free, it should just spin right off. So I'm working on the offset rack spacer right now. This just slides in. There's little notches in it that fit into the notches on your steering rack. Now these just face forward, so it will move your steering rack setup forward pretty much. And then on the bolt itself, we're going to be putting on some red Loctite. And then we can go ahead, stick that right on in there. Start to tighten that down. The V2 offset rack spacers, you just put an extension on your 1/2-inch ratchet and it fits right in there, and you can go ahead and tighten it down. Okay, all I've done so far now is install our extended inner tie rod and just slip the boot back over. I have yet to put zip ties on it. I kind of just slipped it right over here, over the offset rack spacer, and it seems like it's going to be long enough to reach all the way to the steering rack as well. We moved a little bit ahead. This was very difficult to do even with both ends. It was difficult, so while recording it was not the easiest thing. So we have these longer bushings. These go on the inside. Then on the outside we have the cone and the very thin one. And then over here we leave our cone on our factory ball joint and slip it right up through here, and then your factory nut can go back on there. Okay, so we got these little bushings in here and that bolt that's supplied with the Allen on one end and then the nut on the other end. Then we also got this bolted down. I don't have anything tight yet, it's all still loose, but everything is together. All right, so I forgot about the Swaybar end link. You have to remove the top bolt through here and feed it up through the bottom. You can't fit it through this hole right here, unfortunately. I forgot to mention that, so I did that real quick. And I wanted to mention these holes right here. So you can put your Swaybar end link through this hole. This will be OEM. This one will be a little bit stiffer, and this one will be the stiffest. So you can kind of adjust the stiffness on the fly, and then you can just go ahead and put your bolts right back on and tighten up your Swaybar end link, just like factory pretty much. And then we will get to installing the angle adapters as well. I made a slight mistake installing the Swaybar end link. I forgot, before you slide that through the hole, it comes with these little spacers right here. You want to slide that onto your Swaybar end link, and then you can stick it through the hole. My bad. Just like that. So for this, you have to drop your little cone back in there from your arm. Then you can stick your bolt and nut through there for this bracket right here. And then for since I got the extended inners, I had to cut it down a little bit. I had to cut it down. It fell into over there. I didn't want it to burn up the grass. Maybe about an inch off of it. We're gonna see how that will work now too. So I got the high strength thread locker on this joint right here. Now we're gonna go through and install the bolts on the sides as well as this center one, which I did pop out. We're gonna put Loctite on that as well, and then we can go through and I'll add Loctite to these bolts as well, and then go through, tighten everything down. So pretty much gone through, repeated the steps on this side, removed all the arms and stuff. Just got done welding a nut onto there. We're gonna pull that bracket out of there, and then we should be ready to put the new control arms on. Everything's apart. We're just working on this right here. You'll go ahead and hammer that bushing off of your control arm, that little cone piece, and then everything on the other side is exactly the same. You drop that in, put your control arm on and everything, put your angle adapter in there, and you'll wind up with something like this. You got a little bit of camber on each side, but the complete kit is all done, ready to go. I did take this over to the Hayes boys at HDT Auto for the alignment. So they got everything aligned up for me, all nice and pretty, and it drove perfect on the way home and everything. And I did even take it out to an event. I'll show a picture of what the angle is like now that we got the angle kit on, as well as a couple clips of me at South Mountain Raceway running the new angle kit.